The story about Alice comes from real patient stories. We've highlighted some areas to help us think how it feels from a patient and carer's perspective, and how those who are providing care work together or not. Alice is a 75-year-old retired teacher who lives with Bill, her husband, who is 5 years older than her. They like to be independent. Bill has recently been discharged from hospital after a heart attack, which has left him less mobile and more easily breathless than before. Their daughter Mary is a teacher at the primary school and lives nearby. Alice has high blood pressure and arthritis and is reasonably healthy, but has become frustrated recently as her mind goes blank at times, and she has difficulty remembering words and names, and more recently she has got muddled taking her tablets. Mary is a bit concerned and encourages her mum to go to her GP to discuss her memory. Alice isn't keen but agrees to mention it at her next appointment. But her GP doesn't seem very interested and reminds her that she has had a lot of worry with Bill recently, and everybody forgets things at times. He asks her to come back to the practice nurse in 3 months to keep an eye on her blood pressure, which is a bit high. Alice is reassured initially by her doctor's comments, but gets upset when she forgets that she has left the cooker on twice and burnt her pots. Mary becomes increasingly worried about how Alice is coping and goes along with her to the doctor. Her GP asks Alice some questions from a card. Alice gets upset as she doesn't know all the answers, especially the date. Mary is also asked questions and confirms that her mother often forgets her tablets, gets money mixed up, and is generally more forgetful. The GP explains that other tests are needed, takes some blood, and refers Alice to the memory clinic. Six weeks after her GP appointment, Alice gets a phone call from a CPN called Pat, who wants to come to her house before her hospital appointment to talk to her about her memory. Alice finds answering a lot of questions upsetting, despite having tried to remember the date and day before the CPN visit. The CPN leaves her contact details, but unfortunately Alice throws them out with the newspapers. 12 weeks later, Alice receives a letter to go to the hospital. Mary has to take time off work to go with her. The consultant, Dr. Jones, asks her a lot of memory test questions again and explains that Alice probably has early dementia, possibly due to Alzheimer's disease, and he will have to arrange a scan and see her back after that. The scan confirms Alzheimer's disease, and Dr. Jones prescribes a drug to help slow down her memory loss. Alice is upset and worried about how she will manage in the future. Dr. Jones explains that he will arrange for Alice to have support from a dementia link worker, who will let her know about other services that could help. A social worker visits to develop a care and support plan with Alice and Bill. Mary visits every day, but feels more supported after a carer's assessment arranged by the practice nurse. The practice nurse also refers Alice to the local day centre 1 day a week. This means that Bill can go to his bowling club that day. But Alice's memory gradually gets worse and her balance becomes poor. She cannot remember her grandchildren's names, which distresses her. She hasn't seen her CPN or GP for some time. Sadly, Bill becomes ill suddenly and is admitted to hospital with a further heart attack and dies. Alice is extremely distressed and doesn't know how she will cope in her house. She tends to wander and has been found in the street in her nightclothes by neighbours. Social services install a personal safety alarm and bath aids. Mary applies for a power of attorney to take charge of her mother's business as she cannot cope with bills or go to the bank. This appears complicated, and her lawyer advises that this is difficult as Alice is now quite muddled. Mary asks for Alice to go to the day centre 2 days a week when she is at work. She hadn't realised how expensive this was. She also finds it difficult to get in touch with different services. Alice also becomes incontinent. Mary phones the surgery, and the district nurse arranges for incontinence pads to be delivered. Mary doesn't know how she can cope with looking after her mother, as her husband has recently been diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. One night, Alice becomes extremely agitated and confused. The out-of-hours doctor is called and thinks Alice has had a stroke and calls 999. Alice is admitted to hospital and found to have a urinary tract infection. After 2 days in hospital, she is much better. She is discharged 5 days later. Alice has 2 more urine infections that cause her to be confused. Each time, she is sent back into hospital. Mary has difficulty finding someone to discuss her mother's problems in the ward. During her last admission, Alice falls on the way to the toilet, breaking her hip. After 6 weeks, she is discharged home with a more intensive care package, but she is very frail and soon develops a chest infection. Mary tells the GP she wants to look after Alice at home rather than sending her back into hospital. The district nurses now come in regularly to dress her leg ulcer and attend to her catheter. Unfortunately, there are no night nursing services available to help Mary out. Her doctor prescribes antibiotics and discusses an anticipatory care plan. Mary agrees that her mum is very frail and shouldn't be resuscitated when she deteriorates further. Her GP leaves a copy of the ACP forms in the house. Alice gradually deteriorates and passes away at home 8 days later.